Women's safety advocates have expressed disappointment at heads of government, saying they failed to act on women and children's safety at yesterday's COAG meeting. Last week, a letter was sent from key advocate groups to all governments outlining 5 key changes needed to ensure women are not at risk. For more, I'm now joined by Hayley Foster from Women's Safety New South Wales. Hayley, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Firstly, what had you hoped would have come out of yesterday's COAG meeting?
Well, look, we had recommendations from all the experts of women's safety and child safety across the country. We'd come together, we'd formulated 5 recommendations around measures that could be put in place right away to increase safety for women and children across the country facing domestic violence. Those measures were, number 1, that we actually identify women and children at serious threat across the country. Number 2, that when they do reach out for help, that the services there are funded to support them. Number 3, that anybody, regardless of their background or status or language, that they're able to access the services. Number 4, that the apprehended violence orders that they rely on for their safety are actually enforced. And number 5, that the family law system, that is sort of the bedrock around, around separations, that system puts safety first and child safety first, rather than parental rights.
In terms of these 5 points, I guess, I mean, a letter was sent from a number of advocates to all governments last week. Is it now up to governments to act on this? Are they the only ones that can act?
Absolutely, and we keep hearing the rhetoric from the government about saying this is everyone's responsibility. And whilst that's true, we also need some government leadership on this issue. At the moment, we know that the federal government is only putting around just over $10 million per jurisdiction. This is the federal government. Into tackling this problem. That is not going to make a dent into addressing this. So we really need some national leadership. And when you've got the women's safety experts right across the country saying, you need to stand up now. These are the measures that are going to keep women and children safe right now. And they come out of a meeting like that with 0 action, 0 commitments, 0 initiatives. You have to wonder, where is the government's priorities lying at the moment?
Also, Hayley, I mean, the issue itself has been in the spotlight, particularly after the terrible case of Hannah Clarke and her children. Do you think, as a society now, we expect more, that more is going to be done, particularly in light of what had happened?
Absolutely. I think that the community, I mean, it's really captured the hearts and minds of the community. Everyone was horrified about what happened with Hannah Clarke and her dear children. And I think we're starting to get more of an understanding right across the community about what domestic and family violence is, and we're identifying it in our community, in our family, and our friends, and we're realising how it's really widespread and it happens to everybody. It happens right across the community. It could be our sisters, our friends, our neighbours, our community members, our colleagues, and so it's touching all of us, and we really need to start prioritising it. And I think we're really expecting more of our governments in this space. We want our governments to step up. It is the number 1 priority of our government is to protect its citizens, and at the moment, unfortunately, women and children in this country, many of them, are not safe right now in their own homes.
Hayley, I want to talk to you about the family law inquiry. Look, obviously this is a really important inquiry. It's been something that's been talked about for a number of years. Do you think that the current system is failing vulnerable women and children?
Absolutely, and I think that we need to get out of the whole idea that there's this, it's a parental thing and it's men versus women battle. What we need to do is actually get away from that argument and put the safety of children first. We know too much about the impacts of violence and abuse on children's well-being and development, and at the moment the system, the culture of the system, is really focused on that adversarial fight between parental rights and the rights of a parent to access their child. So what we know is that now, even in the face of a parent using violence and abuse, there are children being forced into the care of a parent that they're terrified of, because they're really, the whole idea is that you have to have contact with both your parents. So we want to change the whole culture of that system and really focus on what is in the best interest of that child, and what is safe for that child, and that should be the very first principle of the family law system.
There had also been suggestions to allow children to be able to speak for themselves to speak up at the inquiry. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a sensible suggestion?
Yeah, absolutely, we would support that. I mean, we have a number of, our organisation supports a number of survivors of domestic violence to come forward and speak about their experiences. And there are many children as well that, and young people who have been through the family law system who talk about what it was like for them. Many who have been forced into the care arrangements that they didn't feel safe in and had terrible experiences. And they've talked about what they would have liked when they would have liked to have had a say and how they would have liked to have had a say. And I know that the Australian Institute of Family Studies did a study into this, and they spoke to a lot of young people, and they made recommendations about how they would like their voice to be heard in a safe way. And you know, they would like to have the option, not to be forced, but they'd like to have the option to be able to have a say about their own lives, about you know, what's in their own best interest.
Absolutely. Hayley, do you have any advice for people who perhaps have seen or witnessed domestic violence going on in a friend and a family member and are not really sure how to go about approaching that? Is there a way? What's the advice?
Absolutely, and this is something that we're all starting to grapple with, because we're realising we're learning more and more about coercive control, and that those sort of early warning signs about, you know, controlling behaviours, trying to control what somebody wears, who they spend time with, restricting their behaviours, restricting who they see, things like that. We're noticing that in relationships around us. So how do we have those conversations? They're really important to have. What we would suggest is just reaching out and in a non-judgmental way. That really important question is, are you okay? What can I do to support you right now? It's really important to not expect that, you know, we can tell people the best way to resolve these things. Everybody who's going through domestic and family violence is the expert of their own situation. They've already been doing things to keep them safe this whole time. What they need is the people around them to be able to be there as an unconditional support. And when they're ready to reach out for that support, when they're ready to make changes, they need to know that you're there to support them.
Some great advice there, and certainly a very important conversation to be having. Hayley Foster, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Danica.
Thank you. And if you or anyone you know is feeling distressed, you can access domestic violence support services by dialling 1800 RESPECT.